inviting me to be here. This is very exciting. This is my favorite part of my job, so I'm very happy to be here today. And I will try to be brief as much as you want me to, and leave some time for questions. I know your teacher suggested that you ask them. Please do. Here's your chance. You have a captive American consul. You can ask me whatever you want. So I promise we'll have some time, okay? All right. And please, if I speak too quickly, which sometimes I will do, please just let me know. You can sort of wave your hand in the back, okay? Everybody ready? Yeah. Good. This will be much more entertaining if you participate. So I will ask some questions too. No grading, don't worry. Okay, so I was asked to come and talk a little bit about famous Americans. I bet you all could do that for me, probably. I bet you know a lot of famous Americans. I hope that I've included some that show that I'm not terribly old. Though I do have children your age. I have two daughters. They are 13 and 17, so I think I know a little bit about this. Though they tend to like One Direction, and we don't admit to owning them. They're British. Okay, so let's move on, please. Okay, so, if I talk about America, since I am officially here on behalf of the consulate, I have to talk a little bit about the older Americans at the start of America. Does anybody know who these people are? It's okay if you don't. They're people who died a long time ago, but I have to start with the earliest famous Americans. So you may not recognize their picture, but I bet you'll know some of their names. So the gentleman on the left here was Benjamin Franklin, and he was a pretty revolutionary guy. This was a man who was an inventor, a scientist. He owned a newspaper. He wrote books. But we remember him most because he was heavily involved in creating America, which was a pretty cool thing in my opinion. The gentleman on the right is a particular favorite of mine. His name was Thomas Jefferson. Anybody heard of him? Good. I'm very glad to hear that. He wrote a very famous document. Does anybody know what that was? The Declaration of Independence. I used to be able to say that in Polish, but I will not try today. I will embarrass myself. But Thomas Jefferson, who is from my home state of Virginia, he wrote the Declaration of Independence. He was also the third president of the United States, and he was the first Secretary of State, which means that way back in the day, he was my boss. Does anybody know who the lady in the middle is? Because I want to talk about a different kind of revolutionary. And I know that you in the back cannot see very well, so I apologize for that. But this lady in the middle, her name was Harriet Tubman. Anybody ever heard of her? Okay. Well, I'm sure you know, you've probably learned a little bit about American history, and you know that about 150 years ago, we had a huge problem in the United States. A very embarrassing problem, where our country was divided in half between people who believed that it was okay to own slaves and people who believed that it wasn't. And we went to war for 4 very bloody years over it. And this woman in the middle is just one of the many heroes, people who stood up to say that that was wrong, that slavery needed to end. So I put her up here as an example of a different kind of revolutionary. So, okay, next slide, please. Now, we are also very famous because of our leaders. America, is a world, even before we had the internet, the World Wide Web, satellite news, iTunes, iPhones, people knew who some of these folks were. And I'm betting that there's at least some of you here who can name all 3 of these people. But we'll go with the easy one first. Who's the gentleman in the middle? John Kennedy, of course. He had great hair. But he was famous for many other things. He was American president, of course. The gentleman on the left, Martin Luther King. Even more folks know that, and that's really, really wonderful. Anybody know this lady on the right? I hear a little bit of mumbling. Shout it out. Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton. So these are 3 examples of very different leaders. Some of them worked within the government, some worked with the government, and some worked outside of it to try to change things in the country. They were all firsts or leaders in different movements. But let's get to some folks that you guys might be a little more interested in. You don't mind? Okay, so some of these folks, you probably know their names, but I doubt you know their pictures. I'm going to step in front of this for a second. Anybody know this gentleman right here? No, old picture, right? Henry Ford. He created a little car company called the Ford Automotive Ford car?
Yep.
Yes. They don't drive very well. I'm an American, I can say that. They're not always known for being great, but he was an absolute innovator when it came to how we make them. The whole idea of an assembly line, you know, that we see in every factory in the world now, he invented that idea. It's pretty great. Anybody know this gentleman right here, immediately to Mr. Ford's right, left?
Gates.
Bill Gates, very good. And we all know him because he owns a little piece of every computer in this room. So, of course, another innovator. Now, the gentleman beside him, you may not know his face, I know you know his name. Thomas Alva Edison invented many things and is considered really a hero in America and around the world because he gave us something that we really needed. Lights in our houses. Really nice. I don't know about you, but in the summertime in Poland, not so bad when the lights don't go out until 10 o'clock at night. In the winter, when it gets dark at 3:30, we really like being able to turn on the lights. So I'm very grateful for that gentleman. Anybody know the other man on the slide? I'm sorry? Who is it?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. And what did Mark Zuckerberg create? Or at least what did he take credit for creating?
Facebook.
Facebook. Does anybody here, let's do this. Instead of asking who has a Facebook account, who doesn't have a Facebook account? Well done. Well done. You know, sometimes when I really want to not feel so incredibly old and I like to just make my children's minds explode, I remind them that I was here before the internet. They don't believe that the world existed before us. So, okay. So let's turn to some folks that are a little more towards the entertainment industry because I think especially in this day and age, we tend to know people who are entertainers, right? This is who we see and stuff. So who's the lady on the left? Oprah Winfrey. Yes. One of the richest and most successful women in the entire world. Did you know that Oprah Winfrey grew up poor on a small farm in Mississippi in the rural south of the United States? Did you know that? And now, because of her brains and her determination, and because of an amazing work ethic, she is one of the richest and most successful and most recognizable people in the entire planet. It's pretty amazing stuff. Who's the gentleman in the middle?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. See, he's over there. He's on the internet looking him up. That's what he's doing. Donald Trump. Okay, and the lady on the right, maybe not quite as famous outside of the
Martha
United States,
Stewart.
but Martha Stewart, one of my personal heroes. Okay, let's go on. Now, I know you know the little guy in the middle. Mickey Mouse. Extra bonus points for anybody who knows what his original name was. Did you know that that was not his original name? The gentleman on the left, Walt Disney, who gave us Mickey Mouse, actually named him Mortimer Mouse in his very first cartoon. Somewhere he got a memo that said, you know what, we don't think Mortimer's working, he changed it to Mickey, and the rest is history. There are some surveys that say that Mickey Mouse is the most recognizable American in history. We will claim him. Who's the gentleman on the right? Steven Spielberg, very good. Now, of course, he was very famously here in Krakow about 15, closer to 20 years ago, I guess now, making a film, but a tremendous director and a great artist, an absolute visionary. So I got to, many people to choose from, I got to pick, so let's go on. Okay, so we have lots of writers in America. Who here has read a book written by an American? I bet you have. Maybe not in English, and that's okay. We'll start more current. Who's the lady in this picture? You might recognize her name is Stephenie Meyer. Anybody know what she wrote? Twilight, yes. If you haven't read books, I bet you've seen the movies. Multiple times if you're anything like my daughters. Who's the gentleman in the middle? I'm sorry?
Stephen King.
Stephen King, very good. Yes, one of my husband's favorite writers. A true, a red-blooded American. He's from Maine. Writes a lot about America. And I could not talk about famous Americans without talking about somebody who was one of the most famous Americans of the 19th century. Anybody know who he is? Mark Twain, very good. He also had great hair. That's the theme, Americans with great hair. Okay, but he was incredibly famous. Outside of the United States at a time before the only news you got, yeah, looking at these pictures, right? All right. I'll move on. Okay, so, you know, this day, nowadays, with movies that come out here at the same time they come out in America, and iTunes and Netflix and HBO Online, it's really easy for Americans, famous, you know, famous or not so famous, to show up in your living room or on your iPhone, okay? But I couldn't include this without having at least one American from back in the day, one of the most famous, recognizable Americans of all time, and her name is, please don't say Angelina Jolie. Her name
Marilyn.
is Marilyn Monroe. Okay. But I did include Angelina Jolie on here. Who's the gentleman at the top?
Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Now, full disclosure, we have some outstanding intern students who work in the consulate, and they are wonderful colleagues, and they put together a lot of this presentation, and the very first picture was Johnny Depp. And I thought that was a lot to start off with, because I know he's pretty exciting. So I had to kind of ease into it. But I had to include him because clearly he was very important to them. So, okay, and who's the very smiley gentleman down on the right? Tom Cruise. Okay, so who is your favorite, and you just shout it out, who is your favorite American actor? Johnny Depp. See? They were right. They had it completely. Who else? Okay, so let's see. You guys are what? 13, 14, 15? Maybe a little younger? Okay, just so you know, I used to watch Johnny Depp on my TV when I was your age. He's older than me. I feel good. All right. Musicians, another throwback. Who's the gentleman on the left? Everybody? Elvis Presley. Yes. My Tess Jonas' favorite singer in the whole world is Elvis Presley. But I tried to include a few more modern ones for you here. I know, I'll get through it quickly. So, instead of telling me who these folks are, because I know you know who they are, tell me, who do you like? Who do you listen to? There are so many radio stations here in Crackle, it's hard to know. But which Americans do you listen to? Nobody? I know you listen to Beyonce. She sells.
Yay.
Michael Jackson. Absolutely. Who else? Who else do you listen to? See, here is the beauty of a cordless microphone. I can come back here and talk directly to you. Who do you listen to? If you had to pick an American, if they forced you to listen to an American, who? Eminem? Just so you know, he was around longer than you have been. Who else? I'm sorry? Nirvana. Yes. The Seattle grunge look. I apologize for that on behalf of my countrymen. Okay. Do you like American music? Yeah. You can just nod or do this. Yeah? Is that a good beat? You can dance to it? Good. Good to know. All right. We'll keep trying to put them out for you. Okay, so I promised you I would keep it brief. You know, one of the amazing things in my job, I live all over the world. So I have the great fortune of living in Poland right now. My last assignment was in Lagos, Nigeria. Where is Nigeria? In Africa. What's Africa? Yep. And it's amazing with the internet, with CNN headline news, how much people know about Americans. They recognize these faces. They know their names. They know their songs. They know their movies. It's pretty amazing stuff. Of course, the downside is that some people are famous just for being famous, right? So, Ronald Reagan, great president, huge fan of Poland, right? Paris Hilton, not quite so great, maybe, but still just as famous. And I end on this slide because the point of all this, you know, I could sit here and I could talk about famous Americans all day, right? There's lots of names and that sort of thing. And there are just as many folks. I have not been as privileged to know as many of them, but the ones that I have encountered are amazing. One of the things that I am so somebody else who likes a country music singer. And that's really, really cool. And so, while we don't necessarily feel a lot of pride in the fact that many people, when they think of America, think of Paris Hilton, it's a pretty amazing thing that we're here in this school today talking about it. I encourage you to reach out and explore. Who here has traveled to the U.S.? Anybody? One person will admit to it. Who wants to go to the U.S.? There you go. And I bet if I asked you where you wanted to go, we would get 50 different answers. And go out there. It's a big world, and it's really small, and you can go and you can explore it. Studying English, this is a great program. You are very fortunate to have such a wonderful program here that helps you expand your world.